I used to think everything in life had a price. Enough signatures, enough stamps, enough people willing to take responsibility for you. And I made a career out of turning that price into a number. I called it a contract. Other people called it a chain. I signed so much paperwork, I forgot what it felt like to own my own hands. Every stroke of ink was a reminder, don't feel, just control. But control is the best liar I've ever met. Emails grew like weeds, messages buzzed like fire alarms, and I, the man paid to read the fine print, couldn't read myself anymore. I still won in conference rooms and lost in the silence afterward. Cold coffee, long nights, a mind running so hot it felt like it was suing itself. There are clauses you never write down, yet you still pay them. I call it the invisible fee. Sleep, trust, and the simple feeling that you're still human. That night, I looked in the mirror and saw a man performing fine. And I wondered, if I disappeared for a week, would anyone even notice I had existed? The elevator drifted down like a gentle sentence. I held my phone like I was holding my own wrist. Then, for the first time, I let go. I didn't quit with words. I quit with small actions. Shutting the laptop, turning the phone face down, choosing a point on the map where nobody needed my signature. I flew to Egypt to find silence. I didn't know. Some gods don't like silence. Egypt greeted me with sunlight, the kind that doesn't ask questions, doesn't demand signatures, doesn't care about deadlines. People here smiled easily, like life never came with a penalty clause. Me, I still checked the emergency exits before I admired the view. I turned my phone off, not because I was brave, because I was terrified that one more vibration would crack me open. The sea didn't say anything, it just breathed. I tried to breathe with it, like I was relearning a skill I'd abandoned. In the lobby, a TV was telling the story of Alexandria, a city that used to be the world's mind. They talked about unopened underground chambers, like history still had places left to hide its secrets. I picked up a postcard of Thoth, an ibis-headed god, eyes that looked like they already knew the ending. On the back was a small scarab symbol, and I hated how familiar it felt, even though I'd never seen it before. A stranger joked that I looked at life the way a lawyer looks at a contract. I gave her a polite smile, the kind you use to end a meeting, not begin a story. I told myself I'd take a walk, see old stone, hear real voices, let my brain believe the world still had things that didn't require approval. I don't believe in omens, but some things don't need my belief. They just stare back, like they're waiting for me to take one more wrong step.
The old market felt like a footnote to the city. Tight, loud, alive on rules nobody ever writes down. I stepped into it like a disclaimer clause. Anything could happen here, and nobody apologized. I didn't think I was still naive enough to get pickpocketed, but burnout slows you down by half a beat, and half a beat is enough to lose an entire day. I chased him, not for the wallet, but because I needed to prove I could still react to the real world, not just to emails. My body argued back. My lungs tore through each breath like paper ripping. That's when I understood. Burnout isn't just in your head, it lives in your legs. Right when I wanted to stop, there was an old man sitting as if he'd been there since before this alley was built. In front of him, objects that looked like memories poured into metal. He offered me a scarab, a Khepri scarab. It glinted in the sun like a coin minted by a god. I wanted to say, I'm not superstitious, but my wrist stung. The old man spoke softly, like he was reading a clause meant only for someone about to make a mistake. Thoth doesn't like runners. The thief suddenly tossed my wallet back, like it had lost its value. And as I bent to pick it up, the scarab slipped from the old man's hand and rolled to my feet. My finger touched it, cold, then hot. Then something clicked inside the air. The noise of the market cut out, like someone had grabbed the world by the throat. I saw dust hang motionless. I saw light bend like glass. And I realized, too late, I'd just signed a contract that didn't need ink. I flew to Egypt to find silence, and then, in a single heartbeat, history turned the page.
You're listening to Midnight Action Stories, thrilling crime tales after dark. If you enjoy these late-night missions, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop your questions or theories in the comments below.
When the white light drained away, I wasn't in the market anymore. I was somewhere the air tasted like damp stone and smoke, like the world had just survived a fight. I got up and saw the century change in the smallest details. Torches instead of streetlights, rough linen instead of jackets, and eyes full of fear that didn't belong to my era. Alexandria. I didn't need a map to know the name. It used to live in my textbooks, but textbooks don't record the smell of burning. They don't record the sound the city makes when it's being strangled. I did the dumbest modern thing possible. I looked for a signal. The black screen stared back like a tiny gravestone. Then the spears appeared. They didn't argue. They just pointed at my chest like my chest was a crime. I raised my hands, the international gesture for I'm not a threat. I spoke English like language could be a shield. But here, words were secondary. Power was the main point. Rope bit into my wrists. The crowd watched me like an animal that had wandered into the wrong pen. Some threw dirt, some made signs to ward off evil. And I started to understand. I wasn't just lost, I was in the wrong system. In the shouting, I caught a few words like shards of glass. Rome, Caesar, names that used to be history were now living fear. And the scarab, it wouldn't stay still. It vibrated like a compass made of blood. In my palm, it grew warm, like someone was holding the other end of the wire, somewhere on the far side of time. They shoved me down. Stone slapped my shoulder cold. For a brief second, I wondered, is this the dumbest death in history? A lawyer dying on vacation? I had no clauses left to cling to, only one raw truth. Someone was taking me to the decision maker. And I wasn't sure if that decision-maker was human or God.
They dragged me out of the crowd like evidence. When the stone gate opened, the shouting outside got swallowed, and in its place came the sound of footsteps. Order. A palace doesn't need to raise its voice. It silences you by showing you that everything here was designed to make you feel smaller. I tried to twist my wrists like I could negotiate with rope. Rope doesn't negotiate. It only tightens like a clause written in the habit of violence. I heard them arguing about me in a language that didn't need translation. Someone wanted me dead for peace of mind. Someone wanted me alive to be used. And I understood. I wasn't a person. I was leverage. In the heart of the palace was a pocket of manufactured calm. Water flowing, trees standing, guards changing shifts. Peace here was decoration. Beautiful, but not for someone in bonds. Behind a curtain, I caught two handmaidens watching me. One looked at me like a human being, the other like a disaster. I didn't know their names then, but I remember their eyes because they were the only thing not carrying a weapon. In one corner stood a statue of Thoth, an ibis head, a beak like a question mark. Torchlight stretched its shadow toward my feet, and the scarab in my pocket vibrated like it was answering back. At the end of the corridor waited bronze doors so massive you had to believe whatever was behind them had the power to decide who lived. When the doors cracked open, golden light spilled out like a proclamation. I stepped forward, and for the first time in my life, I had no argument ready. The throne room opened like an indoor sky. Towering columns, thick firelight, and a golden throne at the far end, like a period at the end of every question. Cleopatra didn't need to give orders to make people bow. She only had to exist, and the room adjusted its breathing to her. They forced me to my knees like an opening sentence underlined in red. Around me, whispers, just like a boardroom, except here they carried spears instead of pens. I could see a city's fear on their faces. Rome was tightening the siege. Every decision in this place smelled like blood.
They just called it politics. I was ready to speak, to explain, negotiate, beg for a translator. But Cleopatra didn't ask who I was. She looked at me like I'd already been named. She descended only a few steps, but the distance of power didn't shrink. When she came closer, I felt like I was standing in front of a clause with no appeal. Her hand touched my wrist. Right there, the scarab vibrated like a second heartbeat, and under my skin, heat ran like invisible ink beginning to write. She spoke of Isis the way you cite an unquestionable source. Isis showed me in a dream. She spoke of Thoth like the keeper of the universe's ledger. Then she looked at me. You come from the future. I wanted to argue, old habit, but a spear stopped the words in my throat. Cleopatra lifted one hand and the spear lowered. A small gesture, enough to teach me real power never needs to shout. She ordered them to untie me, not mercy, just a different kind of captivity. The rope hit the floor with the sound of accepted in a contract I hadn't read. Then she offered, no, she set the terms, help her outplay Caesar. In return, she'd give me my life, a place at her side, and a promise shaped like love. I know how people sell hope. I used to do it for clients. And then she ended every debate with one sentence. From this moment on, Adrian Vance is mine. And I understood. I'd just been written into history with the handwriting of a queen.
When the noise of the court disappeared, the palace changed its tone. Fewer sounds, more weight. As if every wall had ears, and those ears never slept. Cleopatra's private chamber didn't feel like a place of rest. It felt like a war room wrapped in perfume. Here, even beauty had a function. I looked at my wrists, the red marks from the rope still there. Part of me wanted to be angry. The rest of me just wanted to live. And in my line of work, living starts with one question. What are the terms? I spoke the language I knew best, limiting risk. If I was hers, I needed a place to stay, a translator, and the right to know the mission before I was thrown into a blade. The moment I said the word loyal, the scarab vibrated like it disagreed. A sting flashed through my wrist, small but sharp enough to tell me something inside me was weighing my words like it weighed a soul. Cleopatra didn't answer with yes or no. She picked up a ring engraved with Isis and turned it on her finger like she was turning fate itself. Gold light reflected into my eyes and reminded me, here, commitment is jewelry that can cut skin. Outside the door, war horns echoed. Rome had moved one step closer. Cleopatra didn't turn, but I saw her jaw tighten. She wasn't afraid of war. She was afraid of losing the right to choose how it ended. She stepped close enough for me to smell the perfume and the steel inside it. Help me, her eyes said, and you live. The space between us felt like a kiss held back by politics. I glanced toward the exit on instinct, searching for a way out. Cleopatra caught it and smiled, softly, like she'd just read the fine print in me. So the contract was signed without paper. She gave me a room and took something more valuable than freedom, the right to believe I still had a choice. Cleopatra took me up to the watchtower like she was bringing a card into the light. Up here, you can see the whole city, and the city can see you back. From above, Alexandria looked like a body running a fever, smoke at the harbor, metal sounds in the distance, and offshore, dark specks of warships like Rome's fingernails scratching at the sea. Cleopatra stood beside me, calm as a statue, but I saw her jaw tighten. Queens don't tremble. Queens calculate. Then I saw something my law degree never taught me, the warning sign before violence happens, a tiny glint and the silence of someone taking aim. The arrow cut through the air. I didn't have time to think. I just pulled her back, like yanking a claws out of a trap. The arrow slammed into stone, and the whole world seemed to realize it had almost rewritten history with a single feather. Guards surged up like a tide. Cleopatra didn't panic. She turned,
one icy look turning their fear into orders. Then I noticed my hand was still gripping her wrist. I released it fast, but it was too late. Cleopatra looked down at that spot the way you mark a place on a map. This is mine. No one said it out loud, but I heard it anyway. I'd chosen a side by instinct. And sometimes, instinct is the most honest thing a burned-out man still has left.
The temple of Isis stood inside the city like an oath carved into stone. No noise, no hurry, just incense and the feeling that someone was watching through the walls. When I crossed the threshold, the war outside was pushed away like a memory. Here, even footsteps sounded like a crime. Then Nephronura appeared, not like someone coming to meet me, but like someone inspecting an object that had been foretold. Her eyes weren't curious, they were confirming. She took my wrist and turned it gently, like evidence, and instantly the scarab vibrated like a heartbeat. Under my skin, heat flared, forming a symbol that had nothing to do with medicine. I heard whispers, not words, but the sound of pages turning themselves in the dark. An ibis shadow slid across my vision, and I couldn't tell if it was real or if fear had learned a shape. Nephronura let go as if she'd touched fire. She looked at me and said one sentence, cold enough to change the air. I bore the mark of Thoth. Cleopatra stood behind her in silence, like a queen receiving a seal of legitimacy from divine law. The mark brightened once more, and dizziness yanked at my body. The scarab burned hot, like someone on the far side of time had grabbed the other end of the wire and pulled. And in that moment, I heard a voice that wasn't human, close, like it spoke from inside my bones. Thoth has signed. I asked for a vacation. What I got was a summons. You're listening to Midnight Action Stories, thrilling crime tales after dark. If you enjoy these late-night missions, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop your questions or theories in the comments below.